Have you ever walked into an airport thinking everything is normal, only to feel that strange, crawling sensation on the back of your neck? Like something's changed. Like something big is happening but nobody is talking about it yet. Like the air itself is holding a secret that you're somehow supposed to figure out before it's too late. Because that's exactly what travelers are about to experience in 2026, when a wave of brand new TSA rules quietly rolls in and flips your entire airport routine upside down. And honestly, I don't think anyone is prepared for how weird, inconvenient, and unexpectedly personal some of these changes are going to feel. And the craziest part is that most people will only find out about them at the airport, when it's already too late to adjust, too late to fix, too late to avoid the mess. So, what if I told you that a small group of travelers already got a sneak peek of these rule updates during limited trial phases that barely made the news, and what they described feels like the beginning of an entirely different kind of travel experience, one that's part futuristic efficiency, part surveillance experiment, and part, why the heck are they doing this now? And sure, TSA will say it's for safety, but once you hear the details, you might start questioning what the real motivation is. Because some of these rules sound like they came straight out of a Black Mirror episode rather than a government policy meeting. And maybe that's dramatic. But once you picture yourself walking through security in 2026, you'll understand why travelers are calling these changes the silent airport takeover. Something that will ruin the routines people have relied on for a decade. And honestly, it might ruin a whole lot more than that. So let's start with the one rule that's already causing tension. Among the test group travelers, the new pre-check behavior scan, which sounds harmless enough until you realize it doesn't scan your bags, it scans you. And I don't mean metal, liquids, or the typical security stuff. I mean your movements, your blinking patterns, your micro-expressions. Basically the tiny signals your body gives off without your permission. And according to the people who saw the early version, the machine makes automatic decisions about whether you need secondary questioning. Which means even if you did nothing wrong, even if you're just tired or nervous like every normal human in an airport, the system might flag you for acting inconsistent with expected travel behavior, which is vague enough to include being hungry, being in a rush, being scared of missing your flight, or honestly, just being annoyed at 4 a.m. And TSA says this system helps identify threats. But nobody will explain what data they're comparing you to or who approved the baseline for normal traveler behavior. So imagine this. You're walking through the pre-check lane like you always do, and suddenly a light turns yellow, a soft tone goes off, and an agent politely but firmly tells you to step aside because the system detected irregular behavior. And now you're stuck, stressed, embarrassed, missing time, and no one can tell you what irregular thing you supposedly did. Already uncomfortable. Too bad. That's only rule 1. Because the second 2026 TSA rule is going to frustrate people who love fast security, the random item justification check, which basically forces you to explain out loud why you're carrying certain items. And the weird part is that it's completely unpredictable. One test traveler said he had to explain why he had a toothbrush. Another said a TSA agent asked why she packed a sweater when she was flying to Florida. Another traveler said he was asked to describe the purpose of the USB cables in his backpack. And honestly, he didn't even know how to answer because they're just cables, man, and TSA claims these questions help them study intent patterns, whatever that means. But the randomness of it is what's driving travelers insane. Because people have routines, packed bags, personal items, and now suddenly they have to justify each object like they're defending a college thesis. And it makes the line slower, more awkward, more confusing. And if someone doesn't speak English well, this rule becomes a nightmare. Which raises a ton of questions that TSA doesn't seem eager to answer. Then comes the third 2026 rule, something travelers are calling the silent passenger ranking. A system that assigns you a real-time score based on your behavior, packing style, timing, scanning results, and even how early or late you arrive at the airport. And no, they say it's not a passenger score. But the people who tested it say the screen literally shows a number between 0 and 100 next to the traveler's lane assignment. And higher numbers get priority, while lower numbers get pulled aside or delayed. And here's the uncomfortable part. You don't get to see your score, but TSA does, and your airline does, and gate agents do. And the number updates in real time as you move through the airport, which means if you're stressed and rushing, your score might drop. And if your bag looks messy, your score might drop. And if something in your posture signals nervousness, even normal nervousness, your score might drop. So imagine missing a flight because your invisible number decided your fate before you even reached the gate. And now we move to the fourth rule, which honestly feels like airport life is becoming a video game. Microline separation, meaning that TSA won't just split travelers into basic and pre-check. They'll use AI predictions to split you into microgroups of 5 to 12 people based on your efficiency profile. Which sounds good until you hear how it actually works. Because if the system labels you as part of a slow group, you get routed into the slow lane even if you're a frequent flyer who knows the drill. And if your group ahead of you has someone confused or struggling, you're stuck behind them. And you can't switch lanes because the system assigns you, not the human agents. Then there's Rule 5, and trust me, this one's probably going to trigger huge airport TikTok rants. The liquid sensor trays, which basically scan your drink, lotion, eye drops, or whatever else you're carrying. But here's the catch. They're super aggressive sensors that misidentify things constantly, according to test travelers, to the point that a guy's sealed bottle of iced coffee was flagged as high-risk viscosity, which sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie. But apparently it just means the machine didn't like how thick the drink was, and he had to throw it out even though he bought it right before security. Another woman said her face moisturizer triggered a composition alert, whatever that means, and she had to choose between tossing it or going through a 15-minute additional check where they swabbed it, questioned her, and then finally allowed it. In other words, say goodbye to bringing anything creamy, sticky, or just normal. The sixth rule is even stranger. The timed boarding pass sync, which means you'll have to scan your boarding pass at a new checkpoint before entering the TSA area. But here's the twist. The system tracks how many minutes remain until your flight. And if you're too early, it might hold you back. And if you're too late, it might not let you through until an agent clears you, creating this bizarre situation where you can be stuck in airport limbo, unable to go forward or backward. And travelers in the pilot test said it felt like being trapped in a digital waiting room, where you just stand there staring at a screen telling you to wait even though the line in front is empty. But the seventh rule is the one that honestly gives me goosebumps, because it feels like a turning point in how airports treat privacy. The Social Group Separation Directive, which allows TSA to separate people traveling together if the system thinks the group dynamic could slow the line, which means families, friends, even couples may be pulled apart during screening. And this isn't optional, and test travelers said some families panicked because they were split into different lanes and couldn't see each other. And TSA claims it speeds everything up, but does it? Or does it just introduce more chaos? And the eighth rule might be the most controversial. Restricted pre-security filming, meaning you can't film or record in certain zones before security, with TSA citing internal layout confidentiality. And that means no vlogging, no TikTok walkthroughs, no filming your travel outfit, nothing. And content creators are going to lose their minds because airport vlogs are huge. But TSA says filming crowds creates vulnerability points, which might be true. But it also means agents can ask you to delete footage if they think you captured a restricted area. Then we get to the ninth rule, and this one's just uncomfortable. Temperature body sync scans, which test group travelers described as weirdly accurate, because the machine doesn't just measure your temperature, it measures temperature changes on your skin, meaning if you're cold, hot, sweating, flushed, nervous, embarrassed, stressed, or anything else, the system logs it, and some travelers said they were flagged for temperature variance indicators. which earned them an extra bag check for reasons nobody could explain. And last but not least is Rule 10. Express lane randomization, which sounds like an April Fool's joke, but it's real. Instead of letting early arrivals or frequent flyers use the express lane, the system will select a random set of travelers every 20 minutes to receive express clearance, meaning someone who arrived last minute could get fast access while someone who's been waiting patiently gets nothing. And TSA claims this prevents timing pattern exploitation. But to normal humans, it just feels annoying, unfair, and honestly insulting to people who show up early like responsible adults. So when you add all this together, behavior analysis, item justification, invisible scoring, aggressive sensors, family separation, random express lanes, you start to see the bigger picture. 2026 won't just bring new TSA rules, it will bring a completely new airport reality. One where your routine, your habits, your expectations, maybe even your mood will determine how easily you travel. And sure, maybe it'll make airports safer, but at what cost? Your comfort, your privacy, your sanity. Only time will tell, but one thing for sure, travelers are not ready for what's coming, and honestly, neither are you.